Good evening, folks. Um, Hopefully not a long video. I say that and it ends up being 10 minutes, so hopefully I'm to the point on this. Uh, the topic is why do some makers make $700 drums or higher or whatever? What's the price performance, the price of performance, and why do some drums that cost a lot less money outperform higher end ones? I partially answered this question, I think, back in one online article and in a previous video when I talked about people who were bullying other people because of the makers they bought from. Um, Ultimately, what you should be shooting for, in my personal opinion, is something that works for you. And if it means you buy a $600 drum, then so be it. And if it means that the $300 one works for you, then so be it. I know as a consumer, it's really tough because there's not exactly uh, music stores that you can just go in and buy, or rather sit down and try stuff out. So, pardon me one sec. I just don't want to have my speakers giving me Windows updates. Sorry about that. Um, so, yes, can be very frustrating. And your money is precious and time is precious. I understand that. But here's the thing, and I want to illustrate this particularly with two models of drums. And before I get into that, I want to say, first of all, that you can put any wood on a drum. Because of how the bodhran's designed, there are certain aspects of the frame that you can alter that will change the sound. But the wood you use largely has no bearing. It's not the same type of a vibrational system like you find in acoustic guitars, where they talk about tone wood. That matters, but as in bodhran, it doesn't matter as much. It has more to do with the shapes of the inside of the frame, what kind of skin you're using, how you're playing it, what's the bearing edge, etc., etc., etc. That's been covered in videos in the past. The thing is, you as a person, do you want to spend? If you have a budget of $500, then pick anything up to $500, including your shipping, because we often budget things and forget about the shipping. Um, Try to find something that sort of sits into that within your budget. And also, if you're someone out there who wants something custom made, why are you surprised that it costs so much more money? Like, why are you surprised with that? Custom stuff always costs more money. Labor's expensive. So the two drums I want to talk about are the Seamus O'Kane models. So the 15, 16-inch Seamus O'Kane models. And the Christian Hedvigshack RWE model, so the Rolf Vogels edition. The difference in price, at least in Canadian dollars from what I understand, is about $180 difference. Thereabouts. Last I remember. So why does it cost so much more? They both have lambeg skins. They both, if you were to paint them black and white, they'd almost look the same. So why does one cost more? Well, here's the thing. The Seamus O'Kane drum comes in one aesthetic, more or less. It's a laminate, steam-bent wood. I believe it's birch. I can't remember, to be honest. So if anyone out there, please correct me on that. But it's not an exotic wood. It is painted with a black enamel paint. And there is no decorative trim apart from the nailing that's done to it. And it's used to hold the drum on the frame. So that's how it is. The Hedvigshack model, the RWE, is a steam bent drum. Same thing, except it has a specific species of maple, and maple comes in different costs. There are different species of maple, and it's stained, not painted, and it's clear coated. So right off the bat, you're looking at a few different things. While the skin may or less be the same, one requires more labor to make when the other one requires less labor to make. Also, if you look at the tuning systems, the O'Kane model uses it bolted to the frame and then presses down on the tuning ring. The Hedvig model uses a second tuning ring, which holds the tuners out. And the major difference is that if you put your finger behind the tuning stars, there's room for it. There's not that on the Seamus O'Kane model. Seamus O'Kane uses the turning wheels. So there are differences. This means another piece is put into the product. It has to be crafted and it takes more time, and of course it costs more. The cost for the maple wood and to stain it and to put 2 coats of clear or whatever, how many coats Christian does, of course, in the end, it's going to cost more, Since when did more labor mean less cost? So that's why some drums cost that much. It's pretty simple. If you go out there and you ask for Paduk wood, like quite a number of people do when they talk to Faulkner at Metloff, of course it's going to cost more than birch. If you want beech, it'll probably cost more than birch. If you want certain species of reclamate wood, it's going to cost more. If you talk to Robin Shackleton at Sylvan Temple Drums, his costs fluctuate according to what he can find, though he uses a lot of fallen wood because he lives in a wooded area. But also, bringing up Shackleton brings up the other thing. A carved drum, because he does carve some of his drums, as well as using steam bending methods, is going to cost you more. Just as if you had to, route concave sound chambers in the drum is going to cost more than not doing it. The effort put into it is always going to cost more, even though you're getting less. The only time that I actually question why you would pay more for something is in 2 particular instances. The first instance is if you wanted something custom, but you don't want to pay more money for it. Even if you were to buy a standard model and then customize it, it's still going to cost more money. So I don't know why people complain about that. The second thing is if you have several models that are very similar and you kind of, you're charging, let's say $500 Canadian versus $700 Canadian for something that's so similar, and the extra labor isn't there, then I would actually question that, But there are drums out there that are very similar, but they use different skins, or they use a different tuning system, and of course it's going to cost differently. There are, and again, it depends on what maker you're talking about. If you get something plain Jane, it's going to cost less. If you're going to get something that has like a very intricate veneer with mother of pearl inlays, and you get, I don't know, maybe you contacted Hedvig Shack and you got a twin skin system put on your drum, well, of course it's going to cost money. It's cheaper to go with the Adlotter skin, but of course it's going to cost money. Labor's involved. Parts are involved. It's sort of like in the car industry where you have Ford making, or used to make, I don't know if you remember this, the Ford Contour, which was sort of like, it was sort of a compact car, but not quite mid-sized. So Ford had a bunch of cars, and they had like the Ford Contour and the Mercury Mystique. Or if we're talking about like the big Panther body cars, so like the Crown Victoria from Ford, the Grand Marquis from Mercury, and the Lincoln Town Car at the top. You kind of wonder, they're all the same vehicle, more or less, but they have different trims and they have different packages, and you kind of go, well, why would, I didn't want to pay Mercury money for a Ford. I would just buy the Ford. Well, then buy the Ford. No one's forcing you to do otherwise. They are demographically set up as models for specific interests. The last thing I want to say is drums that are universally built as universal models or standard models are meant to encompass a broad playing type, generally speaking. But if you're buying something highly customed, you got to spend the time with the maker to ask, to attain this, what do you need to do? And to attain this level of decorative work or whatever, do I want to use an exotic wood or not? So, of course, it's going to take more time, and it's going to be set in such a way. So when we're talking about the performance of the drum, maybe a Seamus O'Kane drum suits more people than, say, the Fireball model from Hedwig Shack, which have a huge price discrepancy. Or maybe you like playing Walton's T series, and you find that that actually is something you like, and you don't want to buy a Chip Mulvaney drum. Or maybe you like Shackleton's cam tuning system because it does something, or how he designs the tuning ring, and you want to sell a Diarmuid O'Kane drum to buy one or something, or trade it. And that's up to you. You know, there's a big difference between blaming the maker for making something, or having the option of making something, and being the person who bought it in the first place. If you go on Hedwig Shack's website, there's a whole list of discontinued models that he no longer makes because either people didn't want them, they didn't sell, or he evolved the design. I mean, the Lightline series became the Coreline series, and the Coreline series is quite popular. So, something to think about in that regard. And, if you're someone who's highly judgmental about why some people charge so much money, then buy used. That's what the borrow and buy and sell is for. There's a Cooperman drum on there for less than $300. That's a good buy. Brand new, those things are like $350, $400. There's 2 Hedwig Shack drums that are at non-brand new prices, and they're broken in. So buy those. Occasionally a Metloff pops up. Maybe you don't want to pay $600 for a Metloff drum. You'll pay $450 for it. Then talk to the person selling it. There are ways around to getting it. So hopefully you as the consumer can take this information and have less anxiety about why some things cost more. It's labor, it's materials, and it's the packaged thing. And just because the cheap drum outperforms the expensive drum doesn't necessarily mean that the expensive drum is crap. It just means that the expensive drum was designed for a particular set of expectations versus the others not. So I promise next video will be actual playing, because we're getting back into instructional videos. Bye.